Hello and welcome to World of Africa. I'm Erik Njoka. Today, we tell you about the Nelson Mandela International Day, a commemoration of Mandela's life, recognizing his unyielding struggle against apartheid and his endeavors towards establishing a multiracial democracy in South Africa. It is also a global call to action, inviting everyone to carry forward Mandela's invaluable legacy. Welcome to the show. We begin in Central Africa, where the Democratic Republic of Congo is all set to hold the general elections on December 20th this year. However, there is a problem. The murder of an opposition figure has raised concerns over assassinations or executions of individuals who oppose President Felix Tshisekedi's government or rule. The opposition parties have vowed to fight back and push on with their agenda to win the polls. Here's a report.
The election fever is rising in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Congolese head to the polls in December to elect a new leader. Voter registration exercise was carried out in early February, including in DR Congo's troubled east, where armed groups control swaths of territory and hundreds of thousands have fled their homes. Electors in the North Kivu provincial capital of Goma lined up, some of them for hours, to obtain their voting card. But there's more trouble brewing in the Central African country. A member of the Congolese opposition was shot dead in the capital Kinshasa. Cherubin Okende, a former transport minister and a member of Together for the Republic, an opposition party, was found dead in his car. His body was taken to a morgue and the circumstances surrounding his death remain unclear. Just in May, demonstrators in Kinshasa were prevented by the police from marching to the headquarters of the Independent National Election Commission, CENI. The opposition had planned to demonstrate against the electoral chaos that they believe is looming in the country.
We came to protest against the CENI, not the police. The police are being used by the powers to curb our freedoms and we do not accept that. The police are not our interlocutor. Our interlocutors are the public authorities. It is the CENI that must organize free, democratic and transparent elections and not the rest.
We refuse a CENI of thieves. We refuse elections won in advance. We refuse that. Even if Tshisekedi went to the elections against a dead man, it would be better to vote for a dead man.
We have taken note. No.
DRC is due to hold a presidential election on December 20th, in which Felix Tshisekedi is seeking a second term. Tshisekedi assumed office in 2019 in the first peaceful transition of power in the turbulent history of sub-Saharan Africa's largest country.
I am proud to confirm that the Congolese government, while remaining open to the support of our technical and financial partners, is financing 100% of the budget of the current electoral cycle, according to the disbursement plans agreed with the Electoral Committee.
However, tensions continue to simmer between President Tshisekedi's ruling party and his political opponents ahead of the much-anticipated polls, with several members of the opposition having been arrested and detained. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Many refugees who crossed Sudan's northeast border this month into Libya are asking the United Nations for better support amid reports of delays and inadequate shelter. The refugees seek safety from a conflict that has displaced millions. The United Nations Human Rights Commission says they are trying to reach all those in need of help, but capacities at border reception and transit facilities in neighboring countries have been strained due to the sheer numbers of people arriving, leading to overcrowding and further stretching of already limited resources. Here now is a report.
This pregnant mother gathers with other asylum seekers outside the offices of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Tripoli to plead for help.
I come from Sudan, but I encountered problems there, so I sought refuge here. Then I realized that there's no stability, no housing, no food, and no drink.
Among many who fled to Libya since the clashes broke out in Sudan. Many of the refugees here claim that despite their pleas for help, the United Nations does not seem to care.
The High Commission has provided us with nothing, neither water nor blankets, and all the people here are from Sudan.
I'm asking for asylum, housing, and protection. Everything that can be provided. I have children and there's no housing or anything here, which is why I am before the UNHCR.
While many refugees fled to neighboring Libya out of necessity, Libya itself is embroiled in political crisis, and a divided government is struggling to tackle living conditions among its own people. There is another refugee crisis brewing in the neighborhood of Libya, in the harsh desert of Chad. Thousands of people cross each day from Sudan's Darfur region into Audrey. They have harrowing stories of the violence to tell, a trauma they have escaped.
In the morning, even they attack us, and during they attack us, and in the roads they took us everything, money, food, clothes, and even they killed, the relatives and the friends. That was difficult time because they did, such horrible things.
We estimate now, UNHCR and the government, that some 100,000 have already crossed in Adre city. They are being relocated. Today we are here doing a food distribution where we will give them a minimum ration for 1 month to assist. They are mainly women and children, as you can see. They really need shelters. They are coming with nothing. And look at the weather today. It's a sun mixed with rain. It's very terrible. They are coming with nothing. And we cannot leave the government of Chad responding alone to that response. It's massive. So we really need to help. And those people really, really need our help.
The United Nations says nearly 3 months of war in Sudan has uprooted over 3 million people and called for the warring sides to face accountability. Fighting has raged in the Northeast African country since mid-April, when Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former deputy Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, who commands the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, turned on each other. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Central African Republic President Faustin Archange Touadera launched the controversial referendum campaign on a new draft constitution. If approved, the new constitution removes the limit of 2 terms to the president, therefore allowing the president to run for a 3rd term in office. Voting is due to take place on July 30th. Here's a report from Bangui.
Hundreds of people defied a ban and rallied in Bangui against plans for a constitutional change in the Central African Republic. One major change the draft constitution will allow, if approved, is the end of the 2-term limit for presidents. Opposition leaders headed a march of around 500 people under heavy escort from the CAR security forces and armored vehicles deployed by the United Nations peacekeeping mission MINUSCA. They are infuriated by President Touadera handing over the country's new constitution draft to campaign organizers. A new constitution would allow the president to run for a 3rd term in office. The regime is still battling a rebellion after years of civil war, helped by fighters from Russian mercenary group Wagner.
I have decided to submit the draft of a new constitution for the Central African Republic to a referendum. I have therefore called a referendum of the electorate of the Central African Republic on 30th May 2023 to vote on the draft of the new constitution. As you know, the referendum campaign will begin on 15th July and end on 28th July of the same year.
Par référendum sur le projet de la nouvelle constitution.
We cannot accept that someone who came to power through a democratic process and who has maintained his position in 2021 through an electoral farce can decide to stay in power and give himself a lifetime of power. And that's why we have mobilized all the Central Africans who are against the new draft constitution to express our discontent, our opposition to this referendum, and therefore to this constitution, and to give them the order to abstain and not go and vote.
But the president is unperturbed. Several thousand people gathered alongside him to launch the referendum campaign. Another provision has attracted backlash. The proposed constitution would ban dual citizens from running for the top office.
Today, I want to appeal to the sons and daughters of this country. The referendum vote gives you the opportunity to decide on a better future for this country. So, don't let this opportunity to create a new republic through the constitution, pass you by.
Touadéra was elected in 2016 and returned for a second term in 2020 despite widespread accusations of electoral flaws and an ongoing rebellion against his rule after years of civil war. In January, he removed the country's top judge in what critics denounced as a constitutional coup d'etat after she opposed presidential decrees aimed at revising the constitution. Touadéra has also drawn fire from critics over the hiring of paramilitaries from the Russian group Wagner in the conflicts between militias that hold large tracts of territory and often clash over access to minerals and other resources. France, the former colonial power, had dispatched up to 1,600 troops to help stabilize the country after a coup in 2013 unleashed a civil war along sectarian lines. Landlocked and mineral-rich, but dirt-poor, the CAR has experienced few periods of stability since gaining independence from France in 1960. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
As the United Nations marked World Population Day, the demographic of nations around the globe is dramatically changing. Growing populations in India and Africa are leading to greater development, but they both also face the brunt of climate change.
Despite facing many obstacles, the African continent is the center of much interest. According to a London-based think tank, it has the fastest growing and youngest population. The think tank believes that the growth in population on the continent should be seen as a benefit and not a burden.
70% of Africans are under the age of 30. And this is happening while many of the developed world, the developed nations, are experiencing a rapidly aging population.
An obstacle to development, according to Africa program of Chatham House, is that many countries in the continent rely on exporting unprocessed natural resources rather than developing an economy which sends out higher value finished products.
Population growth is, of course, partly explained by improvement in level and access to public health that has led to decrease in child mortality. And that by itself is good news. And the other good news is that also by having a young population, most African nations do not have the burden of a large elderly population that relies on taxes and pensions, which can be a strain on the economy as well.
What are the boom sectors? And this would be housing, infrastructure. These are the sort of drivers of Indian economic growth. Then you've got the very high tech, but again, high tech in terms of the fact that there are startups that don't last. And then if you look at innovation, then I think the Indian economy lags on that.
Researchers believe that the continent's youth will also be a key to its long-term security and prosperity despite climate change. Apart from Africa, of the world's 8 billion population, India is now home to 1.4 billion people according to the United Nations. China's population will continue to fall and drop below 1 billion before the end of this century, says the UN. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Nelson Mandela International Day is celebrated every year to shine light on the legacy of a man who changed the 20th century and helped shape the 21st century. It is a moment for all to renew the values that inspired Nelson Mandela. A profound belief in the equality and dignity of every woman and man, a relentless engagement for dialogue and solidarity across all lines and divisions. Nelson Mandela was a great statesman, a fierce advocate for equality, the founding father of peace in South Africa. Here's a report by Kalde Nongmu.
Winters in South Africa got a little brighter and warmer for thousands of South Africans as 67 Blankets organization participated in the annual blankets and scarves giveaway all across the country. One public clinic in a suburb of Johannesburg was decorated with bright colored scarves, beanies, socks of all different shapes and sizes on Tuesday morning.
I think we've got about 150 scarves today, and if you consider we only started doing it at the end of May, because up until then we were concentrating on our blankets. So yes, I made about 8 or 9, I think.
These scarves and beanies are extra special because each of these are made with love. People work hard for months clicking their knitting needles and looping their crochet hooks to make thousands of cozy scarves in preparations for this special day.
If you give somebody something that somebody made for them, took the time and the effort to make it with love, as we say, it's so much better, and it gladdens the heart. Maybe just for that moment, maybe for a little while, but at least you're doing something for someone else.
WION spoke to some of the excited visitors and patients at the clinic about spirit of Ubuntu, meaning humanity to others.
Yeah, I'm very happy for Mandela Day because of what I can saw the gift from to other guys, few other people. So this is my hat for me, this one is for my wife, this one is for my kids.
South Africans celebrated Nelson Mandela Day all across the country in many ways. While some, like this event, distributed free scarves and beanies, others offered to feed the underprivileged. Even doing small things like helping clean the streets are also considered an Ubuntu in South Africa, meaning humanity to others. Former President Nelson Mandela's legacy is not just celebrated in South Africa, but all over the world. There is a testament to his role as a revered statesman, a unifier, and above all, as a peacemaker. This is Kalden Almo from Johannesburg, South Africa. For WION, World is One.
And still in South Africa, a duo of young fashion designers are reimagining textile waste from the West into African-inspired designs. Check out their creations in this next report from Johannesburg.
These two are on a scouting spree. The young South African fashion designers are strolling downtown Johannesburg's second-hand clothing market, the Danusa. They spend hours at the market looking for fashion items. And once their search gets over, they return to their studio to upcycle what they find into clothing or accessories they say express uniquely African style.
Great design is design that solves problems, and I think one of probably our generation's biggest problem is sustainability, not just in garments but in pollution, in all different kinds of industries. And we need to figure out ways, or we need to make it a point, a principle on how can we solve these issues. And as Africans, it's kind of unfortunate that we are left with the brunt of the problem when we're not the cause of the problem.
The duo's current project, Danusa, Life of a Garment, sees them sourcing second-hand clothing often sent to Africa from European countries, which are then deconstructed and reworked into avant-garde and abstract fashion. Their collection was exhibited at an international arts program in Berlin, where young artists receive mentorship.
I mean, the question that we're trying to answer with the project is really the disparity between the North and the South, how certain parts of Africa have become dumping grounds for European countries. And I think that this project is sort of answering that question, or at least bringing a light to that issue. We wanna have fun, we wanna recreate, at the same time we wanna answer questions, we wanna stir conversations.
Aspiring designers Kumo Morigele and Klein Muiz are working with a Ghanaian shoemaker on a project to turn old soccer boots into sandals that reflect both African and European love for the sport.
We all come from houses of color, basically. I'm black, he's colored, and within our whole culture, it's always emphasized that we don't waste because we cherish and we actually connect to the things that we own. So for us to waste is kind of like it's backwards thinking within what we believe, right? And we kind of want to reflect that and transcend that within our garments.
This creative and innovative way to give new life to materials is gaining traction in the continent. By repurposing and reimagining these materials, upcycling presents a compelling solution to the wasteful nature of the traditional linear fashion model. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Tunisian artisans make silk lampshades from silkworm cocoons using a process that is more ecological and ensures the silkworms are not harmed. Women meticulously remove silkworms from their cocoons using only their hands in a process called silk bunding that eventually creates artistic decorative pieces. Here's a report from Tunis.
After being produced by the silkworm, silk is produced in the form of a thread that ranges from 1.5 kilometers to 2 kilometers in length from a single cocoon. The silkworm then transforms itself into a cocoon again, which is one of its methods of hibernation before it eventually emerges as a butterfly. Instead of removing the thread from the silk cocoon, we at Alba have developed a new method to transform it into high-quality material known as silk bands. These artisanal bands are carefully handmade 100%. Furthermore, we have created various decorative models utilizing this natural silk material, such as this lampshade.
de décoration مثلا les abat-jours هذوما هما des abat-jours مخدومين بالحرير.
That's it on World of Africa this week. Get in touch with us on all our social media platforms. We always appreciate your feedback. I'm Erik Njoka. Thanks for watching. See you on the next episode.